Yeah, yeah.
It's hard to remember way back.
That's right. It's hard to remember way back then, Mark. That's actually just fitting
Very fitting.
for our conversation because so we have Mark Zweig. My name's Eric Howerton with Skew Ninja plus WhyteSpyder. We have Brooke McNeely with Skew Ninja plus WhyteSpyder. And on the phone with us today, we have Mark Zweig, who is a legend in Northwest Arkansas and in Boston, pretty much across the whole entire United States of America. And today, Mark has a company called Mark Zweig Inc., which does a lot of restoration of old historic properties and turns them into beautiful pieces of art, plus among some other commercial properties. You probably have seen a lot of his beautiful canvas around the downtown historic area of Fayetteville, Arkansas. And then Mark also is a professor of entrepreneurism at the University of Arkansas. Did I get all that right, Mark?
Yeah, you got it, man.
Hey,
All right. We didn't leave anything out.
no,
Good job.
did we?
There's plenty that you left out, but maybe some of it's better left out.
Maybe so. And by the way, with all of Mark's wonderfulness that he has in his being for humanity, he is by far one of the best writers of all time. You read any of his stuff, and he writes most of his stuff. It used to be on a BlackBerry. I think he's moved over to an iPhone or something now. But man, the guy can just make HR topics seem really exciting and interesting. It's like a movie when he writes. So you need to check out some of his writing sometime.
All right. Are we ready?
Well, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Get ready.
Get ready.
That's our next part. So, Mark, we were talking earlier on the phone via text and trying to figure out a topic for today. And
Yep.
you brought up cell phones.
Mm-hmm. Are they
did,
friend
yes.
or are they foe? Or a little bit of both?
Well, I mean, I think it's both. It's the greatest productivity enhancement tool there ever was. I mean, it makes WD-40 and duct tape and some of the other great inventions of our time pale in comparison. All the cell phone has done for us in terms of being able to allow us to work from anywhere at any time, find any information we want. I mean, I can't tell you how many times a day we Google to see where somebody came from, what somebody looks like, how old they are, what a word means, how to do something, where you can buy something. I mean, it's an amazing tool. I mean, I think about it today already. My sister is looking at buying a new house, and she's worried about my mom, and who's 98, soon to be 99, and thinks someday she may need to move out of her own house in with her. And it's got a stairway that makes a 90-degree corner. And she's like, gosh, do they make a stair lift that goes around a corner? And I said, shoot, I don't know. I don't think so, but I Googled it, and lo and behold, there it is. For $6,870 starting price, you can get a chair lift that goes around a corner. I mean, it's just amazing the information we have at our fingertips. So It's a tremendous, crazy, great tool. It allows me to work. We're on a trip right now. We're driving to Santa Fe, Grand Canyon.
And you're talking on a radio show.
Talking on radio, yeah.
I got a call with a client coming up. We're trying to solve a million problems on a house that closes tomorrow. So, yeah, it's a fantastic tool. At the same time, I think about what it's really done to our culture, to our families, to our personal relationships, and it's done a lot of damage.
Yeah.
I mean, you try to sit down with this kid. I got 4 daughters and 1 stepdaughter, ranging from 8 to 31. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about the 31, 28, 16, 13, or now even the 8-year-old. It's hard to hold a conversation with them when they're not got their face glued to a phone. And, there's absolutely, seems like at every dinner table they got their phone. They're constantly on their phone. They can't interact with each other when their friends are over. There are 5 of them sitting around the kitchen table, all of them on their phones at the same time. I mean, they're not interacting. I think it makes I think it makes them more irritable because they feel you're interrupting them when you try to talk with them.
Right.
Or or they want to, get dispensed with you as quickly as possible so they can get back to their Instagramming, whatever, Snapchatting,
Snapchat, that's
whatever
a big
else
one.
they do.
Yeah.
And so, it's all, so that's part of it. And then the other part of it is just, it's made it so difficult to do anything. I mean, in the old days, I was just thinking today or yesterday on this trip, days ago, we were talking about some old friends of mine out in San Francisco, and they lived in Marin County. I used to travel out there every week or every month for my other business, a week out of the month. Many times I would just stay with this guy and his wife on the weekend, and then I'd go back. And, we had such a great weekend, and I was thinking to myself, one of the reasons why we had so much fun is because we could completely check out.
Right.
Nobody knew where the hell you were. If you went hiking in the hills, you weren't, it'd be like you didn't even tell anybody you were going hiking in the hills. And maybe at the end of the day, you had a call at night with your spouse. You said, hey, we went hiking in the hills today. Oh, great. How was that? I mean, it's just so different. We are constantly having to report,
Right.
check, answer calls, answer text, answer emails. It makes it so you can't enjoy anything and you can't focus on anything. I mean, think about just if you want to paint a room in your house, can you really just sit down, get the paint out, paint the whole room? I mean, that's the way it used to be. Now, every 5 minutes you're getting a text or a call you got to answer.
That's right. That's true.
You can't even focus on manual labor tasks.
What about the workplace, Mark? I mean, how do you think this is affecting, like, let's get real with it. Like, do you feel like that people that are on the team within a company that are being very efficient and more efficient because of the phone, or do you think that it's a big distraction?
Are you trying to bust me for playing Pokemon Go and Candy
Are
Crush
you
at
on
work?
your phone right now, Brooke?
Yeah, I know. I'm actually playing. I'm on my Instagram.
There you go. See? I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it has its benefits and it has its costs. I mean, the ability to respond at all hours. I mean, it was certainly one of my hallmarks when I was younger. And if I had any success at all in the consulting and publishing business, training business, it was from, in the housing business for that matter, it was from being very, very responsive to people.
Yep.
And so, you can deal with any problem at any time of the day. You show people you care. That's great, but at the same time, it is a distraction. When you're in meetings, everybody's on their phone. Nobody's paying attention. It's hard to focus on these longer term tasks.
Mm-hmm.
If it can't be done in 5 minutes, it seems like it just doesn't get done.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny too, because it's like the challenge of just even personally that I have, like if there's something that really takes, like it's going to take at least 2 hours of really deep thought, right? Strategic thought, and I have to stay focused. And there's times whenever I will unconsciously start doing that, and my phone will be on, and the whole time, I mean, I just get distracted the entire time. I'm hearing blings. I'm thinking about my email. Like I might be in the middle of sitting there thinking about something. Oh, I need to check my email.
Yeah.
Even that's a distraction.
Yeah. Even working from home, like you're
Yeah.
like, I'm going to work from home so I can really concentrate. But then you have your Slack and you have your phone and you have your email, and I can get sidetracked and derailed.
Yeah. I don't
so
know.
fast.
That's a good point.
The tether never ends. And not to mention the fact that, I think all of us, including our employees and ourselves, waste so much time online and social media and things like that. I mean, if you look at it, Facebook, one study that's been cited is 1 out of every 8 minutes online is spent on Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, who gives a shit what you had for lunch? And
well,
all
my
the
friends'
pictures,
kids are so cute, and I want to see what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And all the pictures that people take to try to make themselves look better than they actually do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a certain angle. It never show my body.
The filters. You gotta have the filters.
It's all the stuff. And then that creates a lot. I mean, that in itself is another problem. It makes everybody dissatisfied with their life because they think everybody else has more, has a better life, has,
Mm-hmm.
things better than they do. I mean, I see it. It's just, we waste so much time now,
Yeah.
and we can't focus on these longer term initiatives. And these longer term things are most of the things that, that really get us ahead in life and let us actually accomplish something worthwhile. It can't always be done in 5 minutes,
Right. That's a good point. It's funny. Brooke was talking about being at the house trying to get focused, and and a lot of that stuff makes me want to flee. Like it puts a flight feeling or emotion in me, like where I just want to run away from
Yep.
everything.
Mhm.
And even as like this week, with the 4th of July and the 5th of July, we're off at WhyteSpyder, and my thought is okay, I'm gonna head to the hills like you're talking about, Mark. And I was telling my wife, I'm like, I'm gonna be out. I'm checking out, disengaging Thursday and Friday. And I just kind of mentioned that to her. And
Mhm.
then last night she's talking to me, she's like, okay, I don't understand what you're doing. Like, I mean, you're such a social person, right? And but
No
now you
parties.
yeah, and now you want to just run off by yourself out into the woods. And I'm like, babe, I'm just trying, and the reality to it is it's probably unrealistic. I just want to run away
Just run
and go out into the
Every,
mountains and everyone leave me alone.
Uh,
everybody's got to recharge every once in a while and unplug, but we do very little of it these
Yeah.
days. Very, very little. I mean, you could, and there's always a million reasons why you couldn't. I mean, I could say on this road trip, I'd like to just turn my phone off,
yeah.
but I've got a call with a client.
That's right.
We
Right.
have this. We have this closing. We have a million people who are service providers who aren't doing what they could do. My ex-wife and youngest daughter are in another state. What if they
Right.
wanted to talk to me or
Right.
call me? I mean, I can go down the line. My mom is 98. What if something happened to
Yep.
her and I don't know it? I mean, you just there's always a reason to not unplug. And then once your reputation becomes one of somebody who
Mhm.
is responsive,
Yep.
then if you don't respond, then it's like you don't respond. A good example, my wife, her sister, if she doesn't answer if my wife doesn't answer the phone, her sister will call her 3 times in 5 minutes in quick succession after that.
Yeah.
Are you all right? I mean, or what? It's like that's what some people think. It's like if you don't respond instantly, then there's something wrong
Mhm.
with you.
Yeah. Then the
Maybe you're
welfare
just
check comes out.
Yeah. It's accelerating our fear and
Yeah.
our worries. It really is.
yeah, it really is. I mean, you see it, anyway. There's just so many manifestations of of problems that have been created by this technology that we have. I mean, I'm not sure our brains are ready for it.
No.
I mean,
They're not designed for it. And
yeah,
I think that, one of the things that kills me is when I do try to make my escapes, right? And like, let's say, like where you're at right now, Mark, you're heading out west. The one thing that you do need to have is maybe a map. And now we've become dependent upon Google Maps as our map
Mhm.
instead of a printed map. And so that just forces you to make sure that you have your phone on, that it's charged up, and it has to be connected to let you.
exactly.
And then of course, what happens when you're connected? Text messages, emails.
Mhm.
You get pulled into that thing, and you're next thing you know, you're not really disengaging, but you've been trying to disengage the whole time. And so then therefore you're
It,
never satisfied.
that's exactly right. That's exactly what happened. We were just talking earlier this morning how we'd like to have a nice paper atlas. We have
Mhm.
one somewhere, but we can't find it.
Yeah.
So you know, so
I-
we're relying on our GPS and our Google Maps, as you said, and then it's very easy to just boom, there's an email just popped up.
Yep.
What is it? I better look at it.
Yep.
Mhm.
Oh, really? It's nothing. It's an ad for Wayfair.
That's
But
right.
didn't know until I looked at it, though.
Yeah.
In there, another one comes in. Anyway, I do think that the managing the cell phone, and we have no training in this.
Yep. It's true.
Who are the experts?
That's good.
Who's really telling us what we need to do in order to live with this technology and take advantage of the good aspects of it, but not let it destroy our lives? So we as the adults, grown-ups, don't know how to do it. Our kids, we're not we're not really teaching them how to manage it. And so I think it's a major problem for our culture. I really do. It's nice having all that information, though. I mean, that's the thing. It's
good.
You hate to turn that off.
But yeah, like that's a good question. Like, are they, in school, are they, I mean, I've never heard my daughter bring up anything that at school they've taught you about, it's just like the negativity part of it, right? I mean, we know how, like, if anybody tells me I can't do something, I start to get pissed off and want to do that even
Yeah.
more, and
Sure.
so we try to tell our kids, don't get on your phone. Well, that doesn't do anything for them. At school, their teachers saying, get off your phone. And so there's just this rule, but there's not, you're right, Mark, there's not any like education or awareness about, hey, if you're not on your phone, that's a good thing, and it's good to connect with people personally.
Yeah. And Wyatt's
we,
been asking for a phone since he was like 5.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I haven't given in yet. But yeah, I mean, but I mean he was texting it too, to my to my
Sure.
parents. He could find the emojis and text while I was in the bathroom or something. So I mean,
isn't that cute?
Yeah.
That's the
it was great
that's
until
the
he
real
started
thing.
texting clients and other
Yeah.
people. Like it was always the first 5 people, and I was like, please don't text kissy faces to clients. But it's so cute when
That's
you do
funny.
it to other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But I also think, they look at us in the example we're setting.
That's right.
So it's hard. If I'm not off my phone and I've always got it available, why should they? I mean, I could say, I've got to make a living. I've got a million readers. I've got all these students. I've got all these clients and customers, whatever. But, and then it's like, oh, now, why are you looking at eBay?
Yeah.
Well, what does that have to do with work? I mean, this is what happens. I think we're setting a bad example ourselves.
Hey, Mark, can I expose your tenure in life real quick? And
be my guest.
All right, great. So like you were getting your work on professionally in the 80s, right? I mean,
Yep.
you were full out in it.
Sure.
That was before really cell phones. I think that was before really the internet was being used, in the capacity that it could be today. But yet at the same time, you were very productive. You had a great following. You built a great business. That I'm sure that I always often think, like, even like back in the Rockefeller days, like they was still busy. I mean, it was business is business. There's just too much to do. How did you? I mean, you were able to accomplish things, right? Without all these,
without the internet,
without the internets and the phones and the Googles. I mean, what
we had the library.
Yeah.
Right.
The card catalog.
That's right.
We used to go to the library.
To get your information, and then
encyclopedias.
Yeah, and then communicating with your clients and things. I mean,
sure. We typed. We learned how to type. I mean, I was lucky. At least I took typing in high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, but then there was also, I think, that something that maybe back then had a lot more weight to it, which was a personal relationship with people that you're doing business with, right? I mean,
because there weren't many other channels. You could write a letter to somebody, or you could talk on the phone. We talked a lot more on the phone, and you see that today. Now we all have phones. People have forgotten that they can actually talk on phones.
That's true.
Or they're scared to.
So exactly. They text and email everything instead of picking up the phone and talking. Now, particularly in the white collar industry, you see less and less actual interaction face to face and less on the phone. It's more texting and emailing. The problem with that is everything you say can be more readily misinterpreted, and it's permanently engraved in stone where anybody can find it. So it really makes it hard to run away from something that you said that was inappropriate or maybe too hostile of a response to somebody or whatever. They can go back and obsess over that endlessly. I mean, it's really created a lot of problems. The other thing I think, that we don't even talk about, that I think is a huge problem in our culture, and the phone is contributing to it, is just the division that exists in our society today. People line up on one side or the other of politics or political party, whatever the topic is, it seems like there's a lot of division out there, and people are very adamant that their side is correct. And if anybody supports that, then I don't want anything to do with them. I mean, I think back, 30, 40 years ago, we didn't know all this stuff about everybody.
Right.
You didn't know what all their religious beliefs were necessarily. You might assume, but you didn't know. You didn't know what all their political beliefs were. And so I think it was easier for people to simply be friends. And, now it's all out there in the public.
Right.
And yeah, it really, I mean, my wife is over here commenting in the background.
Yeah.
You can hear it's a very self-centered society.
What they have to say matters, and it doesn't.
Right.
It
Right.
matters in a small world, but it doesn't matter to everybody else.
Yeah.
It's back to what you said correctly.
That's right.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Well, I think that we can attribute that to, we were talking about this in one of the other shows, but when blogging came about, right? Everybody that kind of changed mass media. Mass media back in the 80s, 90s, right? That's where you got your information. And so
right. You read the paper.
Yeah,
It's
you read the
newspaper.
paper, you watched but but even then, like the people that were creating the stories were professional journalists that had studied the professionalism and the ethics of proper storytelling, right? And
You're right.
and there was an ethical and moral code to and also and part of that is not to have an opinion. I mean, I remember I studied journalism in college, right? And
of course, you're right. You report it.
You report it.
You
You
report
give
it,
you gave the facts.
And even if your personal life, like when I worked at the newspaper, we weren't allowed to put signs of political people that we supported because it was you're supposed to not put that out there.
Yeah, and
we didn't put it on Facebook, and we just didn't do it.
No, you're right. And there was a rule that anything, whatever side you presented, you had to give equal time to the other side.
That's right.
Yep.
And you make some really good points there. And so all that's been lost. So now we have everybody telling their story with no sense of ethics and no responsibility to make sure that something's true. And it's ruining our culture. I mean, I used to think that all this information was going to be our savior, that that the despots of the world would be under a microscope. We'd all see them, and everybody would see how wrong their ways were, and goodness and freedom would be the would win out every time. But now I can see how it's being misused.
Yeah, and so like we were just talking, people can have their opinions, and they're not professionally trained to and they're making commentary. Basically, we got a whole bunch of people that are writing editorial columns. But the biggest problem is that everyone has the power to publish now, right? I mean, it's the distribution network and the power of that's really confusing, I think, to everybody's opinion. So if we read something from someone, they attempt to come across as like they're factual and that their opinions based upon all these different facts. But the reality is who has the actual facts? Where's the professional journalism that's happening in the beginning?
You're right.
And Mark, when you'd read the paper back in the day, right? Or when I would, or when we studied that, I mean, you could rely on the fact that a journalist that's hired by a reputable media company that's specialized in reporting the news had professionally trained backing that there, and if there was any kind of blurring of those lines, that they would get busted out and basically be considered yellow journalism, and
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I was the editor of my high school paper, and I hear you. I mean, we were taught these things.
Well, I
for
think
sure, and that's gone.
I think that we even learned as a country back in the early 1900s the power of media and the influence. It's propaganda. I mean, we learned that from World War II, right? I mean, the power in any kind of circumstance, a political circumstance. I mean, the power of propaganda and the influence over a bunch of people.
Road.
That's right. I mean, and now, and the reality to it is that we're in the midst of propaganda every day.
It's everywhere on both sides, everywhere, and you have to
And the phone,
figure out how
though,
to
is
get through it.
the distribution channel.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's not the computer; it's the phone because we're carrying it with us all the time,
Yep.
and we're constantly monitoring it.
Yep.
And so it allows this information, be it good or bad information, to spread so quickly.
Yep.
So yeah, the phone it's a double-edged sword. It's a curse and it's a blessing. I'm still trying to learn how to use it. Thank God at 61, my wife is trying to teach me how to live better. Fortunate, nobody else really ever taught me much outside of my parents, and I pretty much started discounting that when I was about 13.
You're right.
But because she has a better orientation than I do as it relates to this stuff. But she too, as a busy professional person, has gotten sucked into it, and it can take over your life. It can ruin your day when you get an email from somebody that's about a problem. That's the other thing we haven't even talked about. It's just like, what effect does it have on your mood?
Oh man,
throughout the day.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
You can, one text or email, you can suddenly be very stressed out. You can be very worried about something. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. I mean, honestly.
Man, I remember, it's funny you're saying that because I remember when I first started working at age 15 or 14, the fact that I would and I've told this to some of our staff before, the fact that I would get a phone call at the company while I'm working on the clock
Exactly.
was like, you just didn't do that. And if somebody
Yep.
called, it better be a life or death emergency.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
but man, I walk around in the office legitimately, and I've noticed this for the past 2 years, especially as I
All
start
you see.
that's all I see. I walk by and I'll have folks that just literally started working at our company the day before, and I walk by and they are sitting there texting, and then I walk by and they put their phone down when they notice I'm coming, and they put it down. They start typing on their keyboard like they're working. But back to your mood though, Mark.
But
I
they're
mean,
probably on Facebook.
no, they probably are. But the thing is, of course, it's like
Instagram.
it's not just about the fact that, hey, you're supposed to be working and you're getting paid to do that and all that. That typical. Yeah, that the loss of productivity.
Mhm.
But then Mark says about the mood. What is it that an individual was sitting there communicating with their wife, spouse, kids, whatever it might be, that just affected their mood and their joy and their participation with the rest of the team? That is destroying. I mean, literally, if you think about, you got 20 people in the company, 20 people are having different things that are happening outside of the workplace that are keeping them
Exactly.
out of focus.
And they know it all day
Yeah.
long.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's killing their attitude.
Yeah.
Man,
It really, yeah.
this is
it's a sick problem. I mean,
it is.
And you could sit there and look at your employees, if you know what social media they use, to see how many times they tweet, post on
They get on,
Instagram.
but they post stuff. Yeah.
I mean,
And they're like, your product,
yeah. Well, because you're looking at that.
we're checking up on them.
No. Hey, man, I've had some staff in the past, and this isn't here today, but that their political reviews and you could see the anger in the
Yeah.
Facebook posts that they were making. And so they would come to work, and I'll say they came to work and they would participate in work, but there was always like this underlying anger with this person. And you
'Cause they
couldn't,
were trolling all day.
yeah, and
on
you
Facebook.
couldn't put your finger, like, I'm just like, are you upset? And they would say, no, I'm good. But there, and even in client meetings, they would be, you could just see like this boiling of anger within this person at all times. But then, and I was like, I don't understand, right? But then I started noticing their Facebook page,
Yeah.
and it's angry comments and posts all day
You
and
gotta
night.
read the comments. If you don't read the
What's
comments, you
wrong
won't
with
understand.
Fayetteville? That's one of them. Like, what's wrong with Fayetteville?
Yeah.
And then the same people get on there and they talk about everything they hate and everybody they hate. Yeah, you're right. Well, not everybody's like you, Eric.
That's right. That's right, Mark.
You always keep yourself in a nice state.
Little
I'm not
bubble.
sure exactly how you do it.
Just a little
It's the white
bubble.
spider bubble.
It's a little
But you
spider
do it.
bubble. Spider bubble. We call
Spider
it spider bubble. But you know, I mean, but you know what? That point right there, Mark, is a good one because it actually brings my attention to be maybe more aware of it's not just distractions and work productivity, but it's actually mood, and that's just not good for us, right? And we can't help but get caught up into it, and even for myself, you know, because that point is like I get a text from somebody, you know, that has having problems, maybe be family or friends, you know, and that bothers me, right?
Sure.
And doesn't allow me to be as happy go lucky and joyful as I could be in this beautiful, beautiful planet
Yeah.
that we're living in.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd all probably be a hell of a lot happier and get more done. Truthfully, we dump these phones at this point, but I think it's nearly impossible to do.
I can ignore mine just fine.
Yeah.
So I
Because
mean,
I know chances are he's on the same thread and he'll answer it.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
See, Sonya, I don't know if that's totally fair though, right? I mean, you just
You're like,
gotta,
he'll deal with it.
he'll take care of
He'll
that.
deal with it. I'm the one that has to deal with it because my
That's right.
husband, yeah, you know, he works on a farm at our house, and so you know
No,
the phone's in
this
his
is
pocket, but he doesn't pick it up very rarely.
I bet
no,
Larry's a
this
happy
is
person.
work related. She doesn't understand that we work together.
Ah, I got it. Yeah.
Hey, Sonya, that's a whole nother radio show
I
topic in
know.
of
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
How are y'all doing that?
Yeah.
That's like the
Yeah,
question of the years.
You know,
A husband and wife working together. Yeah.
yeah, many people have wanted to do a reality show on it, but the
Yep.
problem is it's bleep, bleep,
So it's a reality show on HBO.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. That's right. Well, hey, all right. So
right.
we're gonna start wrapping up, but I would
Yeah.
like to let at least like okay. So we brought about a lot of the problems, talked about it,
Right.
but are there any tactics that maybe we could leave with today? I mean, like some
Yeah.
practices that I've had or that you've had, Mark, Brooke, with Sonya, that have been helpful.
I mean, I think, you know, you could certainly designate certain times during the day you're just not going to look at your phone.
Yeah.
Maybe you give yourself a couple hours in spurts that you're not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important. I think the other thing that's important and that you can do is take a look at your phone usage. It'll tell you how much time you spend on social media.
Yeah.
You know, is that really all productive? Is it all legitimate? It does have uses for business. It can be a great marketing tool for certain businesses. There's no question about it. But is that how you're using it? Are you just rationalizing? You know, get off a lot of the social media. It's a big part of what puts us in a bad mood.
Yep.
I think, and divides us and wastes our time. And then I think the other thing is to you know, try to develop some other interests. I mean, you know,
It's hard.
it is.
Yeah, it's hard.
No, I think that's
It is literally like coming off a drug
yeah.
to an extent.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
And I think
especially even here in the culture that we have.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if we told people no phones, turn your phones off, and don't look at it, people would have a hard time just for 2 hours.
Well, hell, they'll look at you like they can't work anymore. Like you
Like,
just
what
took
am I
away
supposed to do?
my
Yeah,
work. You
that's
know?
where my music is. That's where this is.
Yeah.
That's where that is.
You know, and I think
I used to be on a number of outside boards, you know, as a director in privately held companies, and I remember meetings where the chairman or the CEO would say, "Everybody's got to turn their phone off. Nobody's going to look at their phone." And I'm sitting there as a paid director or paid consultant, and I would just refuse to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm not going to. Sorry. You know, it just isn't going to happen with me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is. It's very addictive. It is like a drug, and it's very difficult to do. But I think you got to start working on some of those things, and maybe you'll see some of the benefits of it during those times that you're not so wired up, and you can maybe start to feel a little better, and maybe get some other things done, or spend a little more time on real, actual interaction with live people.
Yep.
You know, where you can listen to what they're saying.
And the research is out there, what it's doing to our brain.
Yeah.
It's out. It's you know, and so if somebody's just can't put their phone down, maybe they ought to Google that, because you start learning that the phone has more control over you than you have over it, and that irritates some people. So maybe that's the catalyst.
Well, that sounds like a drug to me.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, it really does. And I my practice has been that's been successful. I wish I'd practice it more often, but it's just hard. We get part of the thing with the phones that distracts us. But getting up earlier and having some alone
Yeah.
time, and reading, and then using a pen and paper has been one of my favorite things. And I've been getting back into that. I lose focus of that, because I get pulled. The phone
You're
basically
right.
sucks you back into
Yeah.
it, but then you
You
break
are
away.
so right.
And I'll write down, like this morning I was just down the road from our office at a little coffee shop about 6:30 this morning before it even opened. It opened at 7:30, but I sat down there with a pen and a paper, my notebook, and I was just writing down the things I need to do today. But that really helped me set up a good day. But I had my phone with me the whole time and I just did not use it, right? I just left it alone, and I spent a good hour just kind of not even really planning as much as just thinking,
Hmm.
and getting focused on what I needed to do. And I write down, what's my focus for the day? It's sales. Sales,
Yeah. Money,
and that's the funniest thing in the world because they'll eat.
money, and show.
That's money and show, money show, money
That's it.
show. That's
Same.
it. But I mean, just writing that word down and you seeing that and using, it's really helpful versus but then
No,
check the email.
that's a really good point. And it's really funny. Like I go to the grocery store and I maintain a list on my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and then try to go shopping with a paper list.
Yeah.
You'll find it's a hell of a lot easier.
Yes.
That's what Sonya does.
That's the craziest
That's
thing.
just your whole list you sent me the other day. Wrote it down in the parking lot on a piece of paper, crossed it off
Yeah.
as I
Yeah.
went along.
Well,
Yeah, just sometimes it just works better, doesn't it? Having that paper.
it does.
Just writing it down helps me remember.
Helps you remember, and then
Helps me
cross it,
remember everything.
and then crossing it off gives you a sense of accomplishment.
Hmm.